are super excited to be here. First of all, one thing I want to say is in the global world of V2Fi, this amazing couple has the fastest growing team, right? So there's certain things we're not here to teach you on, right? Network marketing does not work without a systems in place. And I'm not here to teach you on systems because they do the best job in the company at that. So partially I'm here to give them an endorsement of say, hey, maybe if you'd like to grow a nice team, maybe you should just go, hey, what do I do? I won't ask any questions. Just won't overthink it, right? And that's sometimes the best thing to do is people try and change the system. It's like, it's working like really, really well. Like maybe if you hit their rank, then you can change it a bit. But why would you waste your time messing around with it? So, my wife and I work well together because we're very, very different. Okay, so part of her asset today is to make sure I don't fire hose you too much, right? And so she's going to come up and interject and maybe have some time where we take a break and maybe practically apply what we're talking about today. So, so she can interject anytime she wants to today. I would like to say this, that, in life, your expectation creates your reality, right? So today, what I would suggest is you have a very keen expectation that you're going to get some life-changing information today. And you could get a life-changing experience even if I didn't share anything very good, because divine wisdom could take something I said and get an insight over here and put stuff together, and you walk out of here with something I didn't say at all that it could change your life. So that's always a good idea anytime you're in some training to expect that you'll get a good return on investment. So
I just want to interject.
Yeah.
I think you're getting into. I just want to say we're honored to be here, and we're honored to be someone that you guys took time out of your day to come and see all the trainings and things you've been doing online. All of those things, it's very much an honor for us to get to spend time with you, who are hungry and who are excited, and who are willing to get some training. This guy, he actually is super smart. You're gonna be in for a wild ride today for sure. He's probably won't brag on himself, but he's counting today, and I'm like, you've been to the top of like 3 companies, not 4. 6 companies. That he's so the things that he's going to teach you how to apply are extremely. And then we'll be explaining why this company is the one that
absolutely, we'll do that a little later. So one thing, the basics of network marketing are fairly simple, right? So sometimes the magic is in how you do the hows, right? And so that's what we're going to be talking a lot about today. We have some visual aids here. So I would like at the end of today for you to walk away with a couple important things. One is to have a simple, clear vision, and a vision is different than goals. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about something called flow, and understanding flow will make you 500% more effective in life, no matter what you want to do, whether it's network marketing or any type of leadership or just life in general, okay? And also we're going to be talking about recruiting, and we're going to be talking recruiting in a couple different areas, okay? And the 5 questions that your prospect is asking themselves, right? So at the end of it, I would love if I asked you, what's your vision? And you're like, you can tell me, and I go, what's the 4 steps to flow? Boom, and what are the 5 questions your prospects consistently ask themselves? Because one thing I'm very good at doing is I'm very good at recruiting a lot of people, all right? And so I'm going to give you some insights on that. So the first thing I want to talk about is vision, okay? And vision is much different than a goal, okay? And I think I have to here. Okay, so typically And one thing I want to say is everything I'm going to teach you today, you know, I do one-on-one coaching with people, and we really quantify things. And so I have an opportunity over hundreds and hundreds of hours and almost 15 years of testing things like, does this produce this result over and over? So, and I'm always about making things simpler and more effective. That's like my zeal in life. So what I'm going to be teaching you today are the key things to shifting your life forward dramatically, right? So we're all here because we're in business and you want to grow a business, okay? And the one thing I often ask my clients is, what's your vision? And then they will tell me what their goals are. And I go, well, that's a great goal. It's not a vision, right? So we're going to talk a little bit about what the difference is. So, for example, if I said, you know, I'm a Christian, so I'm going to talk a little bit about my things from my worldview. Okay, so if I said to somebody, you know, I have cancer, but I know God is going to heal me someday. Is that faith? Who thinks that's faith? Some people go yes, some people go no. It's not faith, it is hope. Hope is an earnest expectation of something to come. But it's not faith, because faith is always present tense. And a vision is grabbing a hold of something by faith. Okay? So a vision is always present tense. And one of my favorite examples is having a clear vision is like being pregnant. Okay? I'll tell you a funny story. We're in Colorado at church. My wife is decently pregnant, not obnoxiously, but you know, moderately pregnant. And there's a pastor who I hadn't seen in a while. He's never met my wife, and I introduced him to my wife. And he goes, "Oh,
I was just starting the show."
Okay. He goes, "What do you do?" And with a total straight face, she goes, "I'm not pregnant." And he went like white, like the most embarrassing thing ever. And she goes, "I'm just kidding. If I took a couple years off that guy's life." But for example, if my wife is super pregnant and someone comes up to her and goes, and she says to somebody, okay, "I love this baby." She's pregnant. She goes, "I love this baby." And I might say, "Where's the baby? I don't see a baby. Let me hold the baby." She goes, "Okay, look, I understand you can't hold the baby now, but I will tell you one thing. I have a baby, and I'm going to stay pregnant until I give birth to this baby. And then we can both hold the baby. But I already love this kid." Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So to have a vision is to become pregnant with what you want. Is this making sense so far? Yeah. So we're not pushing the emotions off into the future. We're bringing them into the current reality. And if you get pregnant with what you want and you stay pregnant, then you can actually give birth to it, right? So if someone wants to tell me their vision, I'm like, okay, cool. In the vision, what are you wearing? What do you hear around you? What do you see? Does that make sense? Like, if it's a real thing, then you should be able to tell me these things, right? So this is one way to explain it. You can go through life in one of two ways. You can allow your current circumstances and environment to impact what you're thinking, feeling, saying, and doing, or you can use your God-given imagination and the corresponding accurate emotions and allow that to impact what you're thinking, feeling, saying, and doing. Okay. So for example, one of the things to understand right now, where we are with this business, is we're in pre-launch, okay, which represents the amazing raw opportunity, okay? With that though, you have to bring a little bit of extra leadership, because leadership solves problems. If there's no problems, how are you expecting to get paid, That makes sense. There's no problems. It makes me nervous. I'm like, did we miss the raw opportunity phase? Okay, now, this phase of the business is not for everybody. That makes sense. It's like if someone just wants to make a couple $100 a month and wants to have a nice, relaxed life, it's like this time of the business is not for you because we have problems. That makes sense. We're not you're registered. We're shipping, occasional shipping and supply and customs and different things going on. So it's a time for leadership to solve things, right? But what a leader does is a leader has clear vision. So if I have clear vision, I'm not allowing the current circumstances and environment to impact what I'm thinking, feeling, saying, and doing, right? And the corresponding emotion, like the circumstances don't determine my emotions, right? I allow the clear vision to impact what I'm thinking, feeling, saying, and doing. So I'm going to give you a couple examples, okay? The coaching I do, I've been doing coaching for, goodness, I've been doing it for at least 10 years, but part-time, okay? In other words, I did a good job of the coaching, but I didn't have enough clients to do it as a full-time income. I did other businesses, other hustles as well. About 5 years, I realized it was time to do it full-time. I knew it had arrived. So number one, I made a clear decision, right? I'm going to do this full-time. And interesting enough, at that time, I also realized energetically I needed to let go of some things that felt like an obligation. It was another business I was doing that I had done with friends and my heart wasn't in it, but it still took some of my energy. And I knew I needed to let go of it, even if it would have some consequences. Okay, so I did that. Then I asked myself, what can my vision be? In other words, what can I get pregnant with so I can give birth to it? Okay, so what I actually did, I was thought for a bit, I'm like, I know exactly what my vision is, right? And so my vision was this. I imagined that it was a Sunday night. And anyone on a Sunday night, you're like, I wonder what my week looks like this, right? So in my vision, I imagined with clarity of detail and emotion that is Sunday night. And I go, I wonder what my week looks like this week. And in my vision, I would imagine that I pulled up my Google Calendar on Week View, right? To see all the appointments, different things going on. So in the vision, I looked at my phone and I'm like, got some decent amount of appointments this week. I wonder how many. And in my vision, I counted every single one. I would do this over and over again. So I'm imagining, okay, to Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, 17. And I would land on Saturday, I'd be like 18. And at the time, I charged maybe $100 a session, right? So I'm like 18, 36, 72. It's about $7,000 US in income a month. I'm like, that's pretty good. I'm like, I can like afford to do just this and take care of my family. I'm like, that made me feel, in other words, the vision has emotion to it. I'm like, that's cool. I'm like, that's a good business. And I'm not working 60 hours a week. Like, I could have hobbies. This is nice, right? Then here's one of the keys I did. In the vision, the questions you ask yourself determine which way your brain points, okay? So in my vision, I go, how come that was, past tense, how come it was so easy? So I'm giving my brain, there's many ways you can build a network marketing business. Might as well tell your brain to reverse engineer the easiest, most fun way, right? Because you could build a business like this that it's hard and difficult and stressful, and in the end you have a big business, but it's like acts like a burden to you, right? So I asked myself, how come it was so easy? So I'm assigning my brain this job to reverse engineer this question right here. Everyone understand that so far? How come it was, past tense, so easy? So I would spend time clearly seeing and feeling this vision. And from this question, I got about 3 ideas. Okay. And I implemented those 3 ideas. And in 2 months, I gave birth to that baby. Makes sense. And in 2 months, I had that full-time practice. So I went from 10 years part-time, 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 made a decision, got a clear vision, boom, and then I had it, right? So, for example, you might say, well, Steve, what's your vision now? Okay. Right now, my vision, like we are double diamonds. My vision for triple diamond is this. So there's a pretty big bonus associated with triple diamond and a nice increase in income. So my vision right now for triple diamond is my house has beautiful views. If I'm facing south, to the west, it just looks like beautiful trees because we're up a little higher and the trees are kind of flatter. And in the distance are beautiful mountains. And there's a mountain there, like my house is about 300 feet elevation. That mountain there is about 6,000 feet. So beautiful sunset every evening right here. And in the vision, we have a deck right now that's nice, but a little janky. In my vision, there's a brand new deck that stretches. It's much larger and it stretches further from here all the way over there. And there's also shade. And I think we have like a cold plunge, and I think I have my sauna set up here also on the deck. And why is that my vision? Because I paid for this. This is going to be expensive. $50,000. It's going to be big, right? $50,000 deck maybe. Well, I paid for it with my bonus. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So that's my new vision, right? I'll give you an example. One reason why this is so important, because a clear vision acts like a change in the thermostat setting. Okay, and I'll give you an example. For example, well, we'll give a business example, right? How many people want to be rich and skinny? Everybody, okay? The problem is that people want that. It's a goal, right? Oh, I have a goal, but they don't change the internal vision. And what happens is it's like trying to change the temperature in your house without changing the thermostat. Okay, so if I have a thermostat setting of like this particular income or this particular weight, and I do things to try and increase my income or get fitter, right? But I never change the thermostat setting, my internal vision, what I see as a reality, what I feel. As I pull away from that thermostat setting, my current vision, it creates tension, that wanting to pull me back. Does that make sense? And this is why you see people, they try to lose weight or make money and they get pulled back, right? They fail, they gain it back, right? Because you never change your internal visions and thermostat setting, okay? So if instead what I do is I change what I see and feel, okay, what I feel I deserve, what the reality is, when I change that, then it's much easier, like the air conditioning kicks on or the heat kicks on, and that pulls it to my vision. You following me so far? I'll give you an example. I work with quite a few clients who want to have a new relationship, okay? And I always joke, I go, we'll work on this for you, but I do want an invitation to the wedding. I probably won't come, but I like getting the invitations. They laugh. And I've gotten quite a few invitations. This would be, for example, an example of a vision for a relationship. It doesn't have to be complicated, very simple. I'm like, how about this? You're standing, you're walking on the beach with somebody, right? Holding hands. Like you can tell me the temperature, you can tell me if you're barefoot or sandals, you can tell me which direction you're going, you can tell me everything about it. And their hand fits in your hand perfectly, like they fit in your life perfectly. And as you're walking down the beach, you're asking yourself, how come it was so easy? How come this was so easy to find this person? Everything was so hard for so long, and then something happened and it all became easy, right? And so I've had a lot of people listen to me, I have one client called me Mr. Steve, found them. it's just like you said, it was so easy, you know, it's like, boom, right? But they had to get pregnant with that first. Does that make sense? So, yes.
I want to point out, there's some things you can't see in vision. So can you talk about that? Like,
Sure, you can't see how it actually happened.
you might not even see the person's face, like in the relationship model.
Right.
Um,
So, in fact, I want to talk about something in the context of vision called, and it's going to sound like a weird word, but we'll explain it, abstraction. So part of having a clear vision, is to be able to connect to divine intervention. Like, okay, so you can go through life acting like an orphan or acting like one of God's children. Okay, and one thing that happens is you have to learn how to stare down and overcome your nervous system's fundamental dislike of uncertainty and unpredictability. Okay, what do I mean by that? There's aspects of your nervous system that are designed to keep you safe and help you. Okay, and unless you fundamentally change your relationship with uncertainty and unpredictability, you'll go worst case scenario. Everyone does. What do I mean by that? Like if you look at something, you're like, I'm not sure how this is going to work out. Be careful. Your nervous system and imagination will steer you right into the we could be homeless or fail dish, like immediately, right? That's just part of the part of your body that wants to keep you safe. Where it always imagines there's stuff in the bushes that wants to eat you, you better stay in the house. Right? But it's not helpful, and it's not a way you behave like a powerful person. Okay, so one of the things you want to understand is that if you must have certainty and predictability, that's fine. But realize that you're operating in your life as like kind of a sole proprietor. That makes sense? You want that certainty and predictability because the results you feel are completely up to you and you don't have any outside intervention or help. You follow me so far? Instead, if you can look at uncertainty and unpredictability, like, how's that going to work out? You're like, I have no idea. It's going to be amazing, though. I can't wait to see. Now, the only reason I could say or believe that is if I believe that there's divine intervention coming into my life. Everyone follow me so far, right? So I can act like an orphan, or I can act like one of God's children. Right? I give this silly example. Imagine like I am a horseback riding with the Princess Samara. Okay.
I like it.
And we're horseback riding, and I don't know much about horses, but for some reason, imagine this: her horse throws a horseshoe, right? Now the horse is kind of like, this has got to be fixed. Does that make sense? And I look at the princess, I go, what's your plan with that? And she goes, what do you mean? I go, the horseshoe. How are you going to fix it? I'm confident you suck at blacksmithing. And she goes, oh, that's actually very easy to fix. What you do, I'm like, I'm curious, how are you fixing it? She goes, what you do is you take the horse and you put it in the stall, and when you come back in the morning, it's fixed. I'm like, really? That's your plan? She's like, oh yeah. I go, how does it get fixed? What are the steps? She's like, I have no idea. I'm like, don't you think you should figure this out and understand this and take responsibility for this? And she's like, no. My father gets quite upset if I worry about these details. Does that make sense? Right? If she's the princess, does she really know how dinner gets on the dinner table at night?
Doesn't sound one.
Probably not. Her dress gets muddy. It shows up 3 days later clean. Does she know how that happens? No. For her, is that inappropriate? Not at all. It would be more inappropriate if she worried about how it's going to happen. Okay. So this word abstraction is this. If we talk about fixing things, like everyone has problems they want to fix. If we talk about fixing things on a high level, there's 4 aspects to it. The God view is wise. The emotion is understanding. Hold on a second. God view, life view. Emotion is understanding, but the process by which it happens is abstraction. And this word looks out of place. It's like, what does that have to do with fixing things? Well, abstraction is seemingly disconnected things coming together by divine order and timing to create something extraordinary. I'll say that again. Seemingly broken and disconnected things coming together by divine order and timing to create something beautiful. Right? It's like, oh, look at that. That showed up and this shifted, right? Like right now in my business, I have 2 really strong legs, and I have, everyone often has like a grandma leg, right? And it's like, right? And things, I'm very good at recruiting, but much of the amazing things in my business have come across. I get better at connected abstraction. Does that make sense? So we're not saying don't do the responsible steps and the system, like do the system, but be open to looking around you and seeing opportunity. You follow me so far? Mm-hmm. So for example, I was in both my parents ended up in the hospital briefly. I was in Phoenix. I was looking to be about their week. I'm like, little intuition said, I should check out who of my Facebook friends are in this area and maybe connect with them. Okay. So I looked on Facebook. I'm like, oh, I have this one woman, Colleen. I've had some interaction with her. I don't really know her that well. Doesn't really look like she has very many Facebook friends, but she seemed to kind of like me. I just randomly reached out to her. I don't know why. I'm like, Colleen, I'm in Phoenix. She's like, oh. She's like, you should tell me about that product you're excited about. I go, what do you mean the drop? She goes, yeah, tell me about the drops. I sent her a little bit of information. She's like, you should come over to my house. I'm going to get some people together for you to come over to my house. I'm like, okay, fine. So I show up at her house, and in her house, she has all these little trophies on her shelves. Why? Because she's been the top income earner, had earned like $10,000 a month for almost 30 years from this one network marketing company, month after month after month after month after month after month. And right now, they're having problems. She hasn't gotten a check from that company in like a year. There's happened to show up at her house, and she's like super excited. And she has strong expectation. The results her people are getting with the product are freaky. Like, oh, I gave it to my daughter. 3 days later, she's lost 10 pounds. Oh, I gave it to this person. They woke up the next morning, like, boom, 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 boom. Right? So it's like I can't have constructed that specifically. Does that make sense? I had to have a vision and receive it a bit. This making sense so far? So when I have vision, here's one way to understand it. Actually, I'll explain it this way. So, and we're covering a lot of information. It is recorded. Okay, you can rewatch it, and you'll get something every time you watch it. So there are 3 steps to effectively doing this. Now, one thing to understand about vision, I will say vision is another way to describe faith. And faith is important. In fact, if you are like reading the Bible, in Hebrews it says, without faith, it's impossible to please God. Now, I don't look at that like God's really disappointed. I look at that like God's like to say, yes, you did it. Right? And that takes faith. Does that make sense to you? And you stepped up to your true potential, and it's awesome. Right? So you need faith or vision to do that. Okay? So to break it down, I would say there's 3 parts to having an effective vision. Okay? Number 1 is heart coherence. Heart coherence means this. if I have low heart coherence, I'm overly focused on the problem and unaware of divine intervention and connection. The customs, the price, the stock, someone said no, right? I'm looking at the problem, right? And I have also correspondingly low heart rate variability, which is a physiological thing. It's a measurement of stress, right? So if I change that, and keep in mind you are spirit, soul, and body, in every aspect that works together in different ways. So if I change that and I go from the problem and I go, you know what? God kind of loves me for some reason, things work out. I have a keen expectation of good things to come. Does that make sense? So I'm changing my attitude. I'm actually also changing my physical body. If I go like this, what did I just do? Take a nice deep breath. What does that mean? It means my nervous system instantly shifted. Now, here's the thing, is that your solutions are often in your peripheral vision. What do I mean by that? The problem. If I go, you know what? Boom. I'm like, wait a second. We could do that. I didn't even see that, right? So heart coherence, increasing heart coherence is letting go of needing all the sequential steps worked out so you can relax, to relaxing because it's not all up to you, right?
I think also they've proven too, people feel your heart coherence from 20 meters before they even see or talk to you.
Absolutely.
Because it's all information in that electromagnetic field.
You can measure, like when I walk in love and different high emotions, it's measurable. They do all sorts of interesting research in Germany. I'm like, oh wow, we can measure that coming off of you.
Yeah, and all that heart map stuff they're doing in America.
So step number 1, heart coherence, right? Like this.
Maybe share the airstreams.
Cool. I'll give you an example of heart coherence. Okay. Here's one thing to write down. Tranquility breeds creativity. Tranquility breeds creativity. Have a problem? Like often I work with people in crisis. They have major problems going on in their life. I'm like, hey, Serge, what do you do for fun? And people go, what is this fun you speak of? I like, I can have fun after I fix the problem. I'm like, you will only operate at a very low level if you have no tranquility. I have one of my spiritual mentors says this to me, not to me. I was going to say it. He says, when I have problems in my ministry, says someone with a very large ministry, very large influence, when they have problems, he goes, guess what? The first thing he does is, step number 1, I go fishing. Now, people who don't understand this would go, what are you doing fishing? That's so irresponsible. You should be in your office, stressed and worried. That's the responsible thing to do. He's like, no. He goes, I have a responsibility to operate at a high level. Okay. He goes, I'll go fishing. While I'm sitting on my fishing boat, I can hear it. I will come back with a divine insight. Like, bam, here's a solution, right? So I'll give you an example from my own life. Through a series of circumstances, we were traveling full time without money. And I bought a 1973 Airstream travel trailer. Anyone know what that is? That silver.
Worth a fortune here.
What's that?
It'd be worth a fortune here.
Yeah, so we bought it. We sold all of our furniture and we bought it for about $4,500. I think I actually overpaid for it. I now know how to fix things on an Airstream I did not ever want to know how to fix. For example, trailer wiring from 1973. I don't know if you know it. Anyways, the wiring on the lights was not working properly and it needed to be fixed. And I spent literally 3 days on the internet, on YouTube, crawling around underneath, trying to figure it out. I mean, it's like I had no money, so I had to figure it out myself, okay? And I'm like, oh, the problem, right? But I'm thinking, oh, what I'm gonna do? I'm in frustration, but I'm gonna keep moving forward because it's the responsible thing to do with the same mindset and same approach, okay? After 3 days, it took me 3 days to just get worn out, and I'm like, oh, I'm just, to myself, I need to take a break. I'm gonna go for a walk. So I'm like, I'm gonna go for a walk in the woods. And as I'm like 5 minutes into the walk in the woods, I said this. So notice I'm saying something, I'm also changing my physiology. I said, you know what, God, you can handle it. And the instant I went like that, into my consciousness, the picture of how to fix it goes boom, like that. I'm like, my first thought was, I've wasted 3 days of my life. I could do this. Like, I have no need to crawl around in the gravel dirt underneath. I was like, I cannot believe I did that. Now, I would love to tell you that I learned this lesson very quickly and only taken one time. That's not the case. Okay, like over and over and over and over, I've had to learn that lesson, because you catch yourself going like, the problem, and you have to go, where's the solution? Okay, now that the reason we're talking about this is especially important at this pre-launch phase. Okay, as a leader, what do you get paid to do? Solve problems. Okay, at this stage, you don't want to try and solve problems like this. You wear yourself out and you won't get anywhere. You need to be very careful of how you're doing it. So number one, heart coherence. Number two is coherence of intention. Now, coherence of intention is like, I know exactly what I want to create, and I look for and celebrate and measure how powerful a person I actually am. Right? It's like, we know who we are, where we're going, how we're going to get there. Right? So I don't spend my time looking for and documenting all my failures. I spend time rehearsing my victories. Does that make sense? Right? If you want a great example of this, David's interaction with Goliath is a great example of this. He got clear on the benefit of overcoming the problem. Right? They're like, he's like, so what do you get if you kill this guy? They're like, well, your whole family gets to be tax-free, and you get to marry the king's daughter. And as a 16-year-old boy, he asked 0 follow-up questions on tax benefits and 3 questions on the cute girl. Okay. And so he started talking about it, right? And often here, and this is an example of thinking outside the box too. So often when you decide that you're going to do something, right, you have a vision for your business. Why? Because we're going to change our family's life. We're going to do this. Everything's going to shift. Like, number one, often people who should support you, like your friends, your family, they're like, you can't do this. Well, so what did King Saul said? You can't do this. Those businesses never work out. You don't know what you're doing, right? He said, he's a, stone cold killer since he's been a kid. You're just a kid. This is not going to work out, right? So what do you have to do? Intention. Sometimes you have to spend time rehearsing your past victories, right? What David do? He's like, okay, let me tell you some stories about what I did. In fact, I love the Hebrew. The Hebrew says this. It says, he's like, I grabbed the lion by the beard and I punched him in the face till he died. Jeez, that's brutal, right? So the king is all of a sudden on board, okay? But the king, then the next problem that happens is people try to give you the wrong advice. You should do it this way. This is how we do it. Well, David's like, think outside the box. He's like, okay, is that a rule that I have to go hand to hand with the giant, sword on sword? I'm like, how about we just take a rock, we stand about 30 yards away, I'll hit him in the head with the rock. See how that's oh, wait a second. That's a simple solution. Why didn't anyone else think of that? Right? But you have to tap into it that way, right? And number 3 is the quality of emotion. Okay, this is one thing I would say is there's a very simple way to know if your vision is clear or if you're in faith. Okay, it's quite simple actually. You have 2 gauges in your life: peace and joy. If your peace and joy are low, your faith is low. If your peace and joy are high, then you're in faith. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Right? So if you ask me what my vision is, and I'm like, well, standing outside and I'm looking at my deck and the view and thinking about how this will be great for our family. We'll spend a lot of fun doing that here. And add to the value of the house. And I'm also super proud of myself for what I've done in business. Like, okay, Steve, tell your face. Because I don't believe you, right? Here's a great example. Serge and I are talking, we like talking about UFC, right? Whatever. And fighting in cages. Now, there's one of my favorite stories on a clear vision is from UFC. There's a woman, her name was Misha Tate, and she wins the women's UFC championship, right? And Joe Rogan, who's a ringside announcer, also oftentimes interviews her. So Joe was like, Misha, how does it feel to be the women's championship, right? And she tells him. Now he has her on his podcast, and he asks her this question. He goes, Misha, how did it feel? How did it feel for me to interview you after you won? And she just said, Joe, I had so clearly imagined vision. I had so clearly imagined so many times you interviewing me after I won that when you did interview me, I didn't know if it was real. Oh, right. So you have a vision for your life and your business that is so clear that the vision impacts what you're thinking, feeling, saying, and doing. Or do the circumstances and the things that you don't understand or how to fix or setbacks or disappointments, do those impact what you're thinking, feeling, saying, and doing? Is this helpful so far? Any questions on that? So I, in the vision, understand that you don't have to understand how you got there, right? You can allow that to reverse engineer itself by asking this question, right? Someone's vision might be this. Someone might be like, okay, I'm eating dinner at this particular restaurant. I could tell you I'm with friends. It's Friday. I've had a great week. And they go, hey, Rebecca, how was your week? And you're like, oh, meaningful work for meaningful pay. Make sense? It feels a certain way, like, man, like, awesome. What are you doing with your weekend? Oh, I have a whole bunch of fun things planned. Why? Because we have money and energy to enjoy life. Like, oh, you mean you don't have to take the weekend to recover from your work week? You're like, what I do gives me life and energy. I'm excited about Monday. See how that's a vision? So she might not even, like if she's a coaching client of mine, she might not even know what she's doing to create that. But what happens is she can go from like, oh, I have to do this. And if you can let go of that, you're like, well, wait a second. I'm actually super good at this. I could do that for a living. And I'm actually really good. And it's fun. And I can get paid really well to do it. Like, think about that. See? But she can't do that with like, oh, why does my life suck? Why is this so stressful? How come I can't get ahead? See the difference? Yeah. So.
Could you please repeat what you said before about the question that you ask yourself, or the way you phrase the question that points your brain in the right direction? Yeah,
sure.
Can you just repeat
How come it was so easy?
Yeah.
How come it was so easy? Now, the Aussies are very big in sports. I don't know if the Kiwis are very into
Come on.
being competitive.
Come on.
Are you as competitive as the Aussies? Maybe not. But so the question you ask yourself is where your brain points. You follow me so far? Like, imagine that we golf together a lot, right? And she's like a golf professional, and now one thing she noticed is she goes, Steve has just this amazingly beautiful golf swing. And he hits the ball like, bam, off the tees, 300 yards, straight as an arrow, right in the sand trap every single time. Because that's just weird, because he has a good swing. And he hits that ball straight. And one day she asked me, she goes, "So it sounds like a dumb question, but are you actually looking at the tees when you swing the club?" And I'm like, I hate the stupid sand traps. The sand trap. I'm staring at the sand trap. She's like, oh, you're asking yourself the wrong question. See, it's where your brain, like, how come they don't send out emails when I place an order? Like, why did someone not do this? Why this? Why this? Does that make sense? I'm like, okay, cool. Like, you got to focus on where you want to go, not where you don't want to go. Right. It's like, whether you're playing baseball or any type of sports, like a great example is this is Tony Robbins. If you've heard of him, he's like Mr. Personal Development guru dude. He said, I wanted to learn how to drive race cars. And so I go to this course and you sit with an instructor in the car, okay? And the car is set up so it'll very easily slide on the pavement because you want to get used to like handling the car, okay? And he goes, I found us, we're sliding sideways. The whole car is going towards a guardrail. And he's like, oh crap, we're gonna hit the guardrail, right? He said the instructor reaches over, because the instructor's in the car with him, the instructor doesn't like the guardrail either, right? So the instructor reaches over, what does the instructor grab? Not the steering wheel, no. Who said that?
Yeah.
He grabs him by his helmet and he yanks his helmet so he's staring at where they want to go. Like, oh, the guardrail is like, and he goes, as soon as I looked at where I wanted to go, I instantly, easily steered the car out of it, right? So it's like, for your business, do you have a vision? Like, could I sneak in your bedroom at night and splash water in your face, go, what's your vision? And you're like, boom, here's where I am, here's what it feels like, here's what I'm seeing, here's what I'm wearing. Like, cool, you are pregnant with what you want, stay pregnant till you give birth, right? So a woman who's very pregnant doesn't go from zero emotions to, oh, we have a baby. Wow, look, maybe we should what are we going to paint the baby's room and what are we going to name it? And, it's like, that's already, it's not that they don't increase the emotion when it's actually born, don't get me wrong. But if you have a clear vision, there's not a huge change in emotion from I'm pregnant to here it is.
Yeah, so your actions will reflect your vision. But it's so interesting. I think sometimes we have this idea in our minds, a business person looks like this. I would say Stephen looks like a business person. If you see the kind of action that he takes, the kind of way he carries himself, the way he communicates, etc. And I would say that for many years, I would get very caught up in comparison. Oh, a business person looks like that. What am I? But if you know where to look and how to look, it's really interesting what you'll find. So there were three kind of key things that happened in our life that just three little examples of things that come together. So you'll be taking the steps towards your vision, right? But if you believe in abstraction, you're getting to your vision, whether it's directly through those steps or not. So Steve has had this sort of sense of like command. He kind of has that. It's one of his things, one of his gifts, right? It's like a freebie. We all have a freebie. And but I remember, so he would tell people about the business. He had a really great technique. This is when we were pretty newly married, little kids. And it was a health product. And I remember one day we were at church and we see a woman named Mary, and she was had very visible physical challenge in her joints. I'm like, Steve, we have to tell her. And so I told her, we initiated the conversation.
I didn't. Yeah. She took initiative.
Yeah. Right. We talked to her like, this might help you. And it's just let it happen. And it's interesting because you had this idea, we were working towards building a business, but it just so happened that Mary told her hairdresser, who told her chiropractor, who happened to be a friend of hers and who started to share it with all of his clients.
Who loved network marketing, her chiropractor.
It was really interesting because if the phone rang at 6 a.m. or 11 p.m., it was him. And pretty much any time in between, he kept us busy. And I would say that was one of the first things that happened that started revving up our business and taking it in the direction that Steve was already visualizing. And
that's abstraction. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. And another time in life, Stephen can be extremely focused and he's getting stuff done. Boom, boom. I mean, extremely.
Sometimes it's like this. That makes sense, which is not helpful.
But he, you know, he's taking care of his family, right? So he's like getting stuff done. And I'm like, well, who am I going to hang out with? Where's my community? So I just spend time building relationship with people. And we came across a product in the company that was really growing and really doing something. And it was because of the network, huge network of friends that we had this equity with, that business went. He didn't really have contacts at that time because he was so busy taking care of everything. It was kind of before we blew everything up with Facebook. It was kind of like before Facebook. And so it's interesting. It's like trusting the vision and really trusting that yes, I'm going to take steps towards this, but it may not be completely dependent on my steps because I'm not an orphan. I'm not alone. I'm open to things coming to me. And then there's a third one.
Patrick is a great example. So, anything happening in Europe, most is in my business. Okay. Here's the logical sequential steps I took. Random person on Facebook asked me to send them a bottle of product and brands. I'm like, fine, I don't really hardly know you. Send it to them. They get great results. They talk to a friend of theirs, Patrick Powers, who looks at it and decides this looks great, and he recruits himself. Right? So that's what you do. You randomly send product to people in France, and that's not a bunch of steps. That makes sense. Right? And so that's part of the abstract process.
Oh, it's Sharon.
Right.
Last one is we went to a big corporate event and we heard this woman speak on, she called it time management. And we just really resonated with it. Steve took me, we heard her training. He took me to it, so he went through it twice. We went out to a restaurant to eat that night. It was a splurge for us on the budget we had. It was a big deal. And we saw them at the same restaurant and they were eating with two other people. I'm like, honey.
She's like, honey.
We have to get their meal.
She says, what you said is, we must have a relationship with that woman, buy their dinner. And I'm like.
It was a fortune. It was because we couldn't just go over there and say, can we just get those two, not those two? No.
The whole table.
The table.
Right.
And I guess the waiter told him it was us because we didn't go out of our way to let him know. But it was just like it was a faith thing. Like we're gonna connect, we're gonna give something. You know. And ended up that they really took notice of that. And so
that woman became my mentor, and what I learned from her, I made the amount of money that meal cost me often every single day.
She's right. They're the ones who got Stephen coaching. It's the bottom line. And
so it's you understand that somewhat of a theme. My wife naturally is a little better at the abstract process than me, and I'm like, that doesn't make logical sense. Right. So
it's part of this,
something I've had to develop, and you come by it more naturally than I do.
And right? But the point is, everyone has within them the greatness to do something with this. If you believe it.
So part of it, the abstraction, I want to talk a bit about how your brain works. Okay. And
then let's do it.
Okay. So. This is super important. Your conscious mind takes in so much information, right? Your brain has to make shortcuts, right? And if your brain doesn't make shortcuts, it would actually cause you a lot of problems. So the information comes in, I compare it against my subconscious beliefs as life is, I am, people are, right? And if it doesn't match it, my brain will ignore the information or pervert it to match it, right? You follow me so far? So, weird example, if my wife's brain did not make any shortcuts, if I shaved my beard and showed up, she would be like, who are you? Like literally. And you go, oh, that sounds funny. Yes, that sounds funny because your brain makes shortcuts. Okay. For example, everyone here has said or done something that someone else has taken to mean something you didn't mean at all. Anyone else have that experience? Like, well, how do you get that? That's not what I meant. What, are you crazy? Right? But you typically make an assumption that everything you see and believe is totally accurate. Okay, see the problem? So this is crucial in business, and especially a business where you're in a people business, because much of these wrong assumptions have to do with people and relationships. Okay, there was research study done once, and they asked for two groups of people. They said, we want people who think they're lucky and people who think they're unlucky, right? And a lot of people go, oh, well, you're just lucky. I'm not lucky. You're lucky. That's why it turned out for you. Okay, so they gave all the study participants the same job. They go, here's the newspaper. Thank you, sir, for participating. Here's a newspaper. Your only job is to look through the newspaper and count how many pictures are in the newspaper. Okay, thank you, right? But what the researchers did is they put two different items in the newspaper. One that said, there's 43 pictures, you can just stop counting now, Dan, you waste your time. The other one said, congratulations, you have won $250, tell the researcher. Okay, only the people who thought they were lucky saw either one of those, right? So here we are, you're all in the same country, you're all selling the same product. Some people are like, oh, they wouldn't be interested. This never works. This is probably what's going to happen. Other people are like, ooh, everybody's going to want this. Does that make sense? See the difference? One of the most extreme examples is this, because we're also talking about, oh, they're not interested. They didn't want this. Like, we make some serious assumptions. My older sister had a pretty tough marriage, filled a lot of guilt and shame, got divorced, moved to Hawaii. In Hawaii, she dealt with a lot of very serious depression. Now, one of the reasons she dealt with depression was because she didn't think that other people thought that she was worth investing in for a relationship, okay? And we need connections and relationship with people, right? And that's kind of depressing if you're like, sweet, okay. So she moves from Hawaii closer to us, and I am not outgoing, friendly person in general. Like, we could go to church for 5 years and I would never talk to you, and you might think I actually actively dislike you. Not the case. I'm just thinking about something else. My wife, though, she likes the connection. So my wife had introduced my sister to plenty of people over a period of a couple of months. One Sunday, I'm staying next to my sister after the sermon. 3 people walk up to her, and they all say the same 3 things. They acknowledge her, they affirm her, they invite her into deeper relationships, right? Like, oh, Samara, you are awesome. Look, we should have coffee together sometime. I'd like to get to know you better. Like 3 people. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, like over and over and over. Now, 20 minutes later, over our afternoon burrito for lunch, my sister says this to me. You know, it's really hard to make connections with people at church. I was like, what? Right? Well, because people are like, oh, it's hard to do this business. People aren't interested. It's too expensive. Like, with the shipping, I don't know what shipping is gross. You know, it's like, you understand? Problem. I looked at her, I go, your brain is lying to you, like hardcore. That's fundamentally not even close to the truth. And she started to believe me a bit. Like, maybe I've made some assumptions, right? So a couple months later, she's walking her dog in the state park on a Tuesday. And that Tuesday, she meets some other ladies who are also walking their dogs. They talk a little bit. These women, they invite her into a relationship. Like, you should come hang out with us and walk your dog. This time she sees it and hears it, right? Long story short, this is a small Texas town. Those women have been walking their dogs every Tuesday and every Thursday for 20 years in a small town, and they know everybody, okay? By Christmas that year, I went to my sister's Christmas party, her house full of people who loved her. You understand? The opportunity was always there, but her brain filtered it based on her expectation, right? So it's like, in your business, have a clear vision, be comfortable that you're not sure how things are going to work out, but at least you're looking around with expectation, like, where is it? Where's that person? Is it you? Are you the person who wants to do this? No? Okay, I know somebody here. Does that make sense? It's like, it changes your energy, your expectations. It changes you, spirit, soul, and body. Your faith, your mind, your will, your intellect, your emotions, what you're looking for, questions you're asking, your physiology, how you're standing, moving, breathing, the energy you develop. So you wanted to give some.
Yeah, I'd love for us to just take maybe about 60 seconds. And if you can just try to practice what Steve's talking about getting a little bit of clarity on your vision. And so one thing, how can they tell if their vision is a goal or a vision?
So a goal is I want to do this. And you
I want to reach this rank.
Right?
Or,
A vision is now that I am at this rank, this is what, if I close my eyes, what I can see and feel around me that represents that I've done it. Right?
we had one goal of Diamond. Oh, we take somebody, your parents or us, out to this like specific, really, really, really nice meal.
Yeah.
And we're talking about it with each other. I'm just so grateful that we were able to get to this point and celebrate it with them. So a lot of times it's really the things about it. So if you can imagine, like for us, sometimes it's meant a lot to imagine people thanking us.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for bringing this into our life. It helped my body or my friend or my family member physically. Thank you for bringing this into our lives. It shifted things around our finances, which led us to the thing that was really on our heart, which led us to have this big family vacation, which led me to connect with my mom in a new way, which, you know what I'm saying? So it's not just but for most people, it's not, I make this much a month. For most people, it's like, oh, we're able to get a house where my kids can live with us and my grandbaby. You know what I mean? It's like, what is it that income level, whatever, or time freedom gives you that really allows you to express a part of who you are or allows you to be family. So we'll be just quiet for about 60 seconds. If you want to jot down a couple of them.
So to reiterate, it could be as simple as I'm sitting at my kitchen table. It's Monday morning. I'm drinking a cup of coffee and I'm going to work. I'm starting my day in a very relaxed manner. Right. So what does it feel like? You're like, I don't go to work anymore. My life feels free and abundant. And maybe you're looking at, I don't know, we're going to go on vacation here. We're going to do this.
Yeah.
Right?
Or it could be you have money in the bank, savings account, or a house. You know, it's more about.
Right.
It's different
like,
from now.
What does it feel? So what does it feel like? If your vision doesn't get clear enough to this part is like if your vision is clear enough, you already have the benefit of it. Why?
Mm-hmm.
Whatever your goal is, you want to do that because you think if I did that, then I would feel a certain way. Okay, cool. A vision, your emotions are very deliberate, not reactive, and you already have clarity and you're already feeling that way. So you already have, like Misha takes, she's like, I so clearly imagine I'm in the ring, I won, you're interviewing me, that when it did happen, I didn't even know it was real. So she had the benefit of being the women's UFC championship for a decent amount of time before it ever happened. So, anyways.
So we'll just set a little timer here for 60 seconds.